The bag that cost more than my trust. Daniel had exactly $7,000 in his retirement account when his son called crying about his grandson's tuition, and exactly $0 in it 3 weeks later, right around the time his daughter-in-law posted a photo of a brand new Louis Vuitton bag with the caption, "Treated myself." He didn't see the post right away. Daniel wasn't the type to scroll Facebook for fun. He was 68 years old, a retired electrician who still woke up at 5:30 out of habit, still made his coffee the same way he had for 40 years, black, no sugar, in the chipped blue mug his late wife Carol had bought him at a flea market in 1994. He lived alone now, in the same house on Maple Street, where he'd raised his son Ryan, and most days the loudest sound in his life was the ticking of the kitchen clock. So when his phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon and Ryan's name came up on the screen, Daniel felt that small lift in his chest he always felt when his son called. Ryan didn't call often. He was busy, a father now himself, working long hours at some marketing firm downtown, married to a woman named Ashley, who Daniel had never quite warmed up to but tolerated for his son's sake. "Dad," Ryan said, and Daniel could hear the strain in his voice immediately. "Dad, I hate to ask you this. I really do, but I need help." "What's wrong? Is Tyler okay?" Tyler was Daniel's only grandson, 7 years old, with Carol's same crooked smile and a laugh that could fill a room. He's fine. It's not nobody's hurt, it's the school." Ryan exhaled hard into the phone. "The private school, the one we've been trying to get him into. They finally have a spot open, but it's now or never, and the enrollment deposit plus the first semester is due Friday. It's $7,000, Dad. I know it's a lot, I know. But this school, it's the one with the small class sizes, the one his teacher recommended, the one that could really set him up right. Ashley and I have been saving, but we came up short, and I didn't know who else to call." Daniel sat down slowly at the kitchen table. $7,000 was not nothing. It was nearly a third of what he had left after Carol's medical bills had eaten through most of their savings before she passed 2 years ago. But this was his grandson. This was Tyler, who called him Grandpa D, and drew him pictures of dinosaurs and left them stuck to Daniel's refrigerator with alphabet magnets. "You're sure this is legitimate? The school, I mean, you're not getting scammed or something?" "Dad, come on, I'll send you the enrollment forms, the invoice, everything. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't real." "Okay," Daniel said, and he meant it the way he'd meant every promise he'd ever made his son, fully, without reservation. "Okay, I'll transfer it tomorrow morning, for Tyler." "Thank you, Dad, seriously, this means everything. I'll pay you back, I promise, as soon as things settle down at work." "You don't need to pay me back. Just make sure that boy gets a good education. That's payment enough." There was a pause on the line, and for a second Daniel thought he heard something, a voice in the background, maybe, or a door closing, but Ryan spoke again before he could place it. "You're the best, Dad, I mean it." Daniel hung up the phone and sat in his quiet kitchen for a long moment, feeling something he hadn't felt in a while, useful, needed, like the money in his account still meant something beyond a number on a screen, like it could still do good in the world, still be part of building something for the next generation the way he and Carol had always tried to do. He transferred the money the next morning. He didn't ask for the enrollment forms Ryan had mentioned. He didn't need proof. This was his son. 3 weeks passed the way weeks do when you're retired and alone, slowly, and then all at once. Daniel puttered in his garden. He fixed a leaky faucet for his neighbor, Mrs. Okafor, refusing payment the way he always did. He watched the local news every night at 6 and fell asleep in his recliner more often than he'd like to admit. He thought about Tyler starting his new school and felt a warm, private pride about it, the kind you don't need anyone to see. It was his granddaughter, not Tyler, but Ryan's stepdaughter from Ashley's first marriage, a sharp 16-year-old named Maddie, who Daniel had a soft spot for, who changed everything. Maddie called him sometimes, just to talk, which Daniel treasured more than she probably knew. That Thursday evening she called to ask if he could help her with a school project on family history, and somewhere in the conversation, entirely without malice, entirely without knowing what she was doing, she said something that stopped Daniel's heart cold. "Oh, by the way, Grandpa D, did you see Mom's new bag? She posted it like 3 weeks ago. It's so pretty, it's got the little gold buckles and everything. She said Dad surprised her with it for their anniversary." Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of bag, sweetheart?" "Like a Louis Vuitton one, the Neverfull, I think it's called. Those things are like $2,000, Grandpa, I looked it up." Daniel felt the floor of his stomach drop out from under him, but he kept his voice even, kept it light, the way he'd learned to do over decades of not wanting to worry the people he loved. That's nice, honey. When was their anniversary again?" "Like 3-4 weeks ago. Right before Tyler started at the new school, I think. because I remember Mom was so happy about both things at the same time. Daniel told Maddie he loved her, that he'd help with her project this weekend, and hung up the phone with hands that weren't entirely steady. He sat in his recliner in the dark for a long time. The television was off. The house was silent except for that same ticking clock. He thought about Ryan's voice on the phone 3 weeks ago. I know it's a lot, I know, but this school could really set him up right. And he thought about a $2,000 handbag with gold buckles, and he thought about the sound he'd heard in the background of that call, the one he'd dismissed as nothing. He didn't jump to conclusions. Daniel had spent 40 years as an electrician, and if there was one thing that job had taught him, it was that you never diagnosed a problem before you traced the wiring. So the next morning, instead of calling Ryan and demanding answers, he did something he rarely did. He opened his laptop, logged into his bank account, and looked closely at the transfer he'd made 3 weeks earlier. $7,000 sent directly to Ryan's personal checking account. Not to a school, not to any tuition portal, to Ryan. Daniel had assumed, the way you assume when you trust someone completely, that the money would go exactly where it was needed. He had never asked for the invoice Ryan promised to send. It had never come. And Daniel, wrapped up in the warm feeling of being useful to his grandson's future, had never followed up. He picked up the phone and called the private school directly. It took him 20 minutes on hold and a transfer to the admissions office before he got an actual person, a woman with a tired but polite voice named Deborah. I'm calling about my grandson, Tyler Whitfield. I believe he was enrolled about a month ago. There was a pause, the sound of keys clicking. I'm sorry, sir, I don't see a Tyler Whitfield in our system, current or pending. Could you double-check the spelling, or maybe he applied to one of our sister campuses? Daniel's chest went tight and cold. No, I have the right school. Are you certain? There should have been an enrollment deposit paid around 3 weeks ago. I'm looking right now, sir. We do have a waitlist inquiry from a Ryan Whitfield back in the spring, but no completed enrollment, no deposit on file, and no student currently attending under that name. I'm sorry. Daniel thanked her, hung up the phone, and sat very still in his kitchen, the same kitchen where he'd once made Ryan pancakes shaped like dinosaurs because that's what Tyler liked now too, some inherited joy passed down a generation. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, not quite anger, not quite grief, but some third thing sitting right in between them, heavy in his chest. He thought about calling Ryan immediately and unleashing everything he felt. But Daniel had learned, over a long marriage and a longer life, that the things you say in the first wave of hurt are rarely the things that fix anything. So instead he drove. Ryan and Ashley lived 25 minutes away, in a newer subdivision with matching mailboxes and a homeowners association that fined people for the wrong shade of front door. Daniel hadn't called ahead. He parked in the driveway behind Ashley's SUV and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, before he made himself get out. Ashley answered the door and Daniel watched her face do a small involuntary thing, a flicker of surprise that resolved, a half second too late, into a smile. Daniel, we weren't expecting you. Is everything okay? Is Ryan home? He's in the study. Come in. The house smelled like a candle, something with cinnamon in it. Daniel noticed on the entryway table, exactly where Ashley must have set it down after a day out, the bag. Cream and brown checkered canvas, gold hardware, sitting there like it belonged, like it hadn't been purchased with money meant for a 7-year-old's education. Ryan came out of the study looking mildly confused, then increasingly uneasy as he registered the expression on his father's face. Dad, what's going on? Is everything okay? I called the school today, Daniel said. He kept his voice level. 40 years of handling live wires had taught him that panic and anger both made you sloppy, made you get burned. Tyler's school, the one you needed $7,000 for. The color went out of Ryan's face in a way that told Daniel everything he needed to know before another word was spoken. They have no record of him, no enrollment, no deposit, nothing. Daniel's eyes moved deliberately toward the entryway table, but I see you two had a good anniversary. Ashley's hand went instinctively toward the bag, as if she could shield it from view, which told Daniel even more. Dad, let me explain. I'm listening. Daniel folded his arms and stood in the doorway of his son's home, not moving further inside, not sitting down, not softening. I'm genuinely listening, Ryan. Explain to me how a school enrollment for my grandson turned into a handbag for your wife. Ryan's jaw worked for a moment before anything came out. It wasn't like that exactly. We did want to move Tyler to that school. That part was real. I promise you that part was real. But then the spot fell through. They gave it to another family. There was some mix-up with the wait list, and by the time that happened, the money was already spent, Daniel said quietly, on a purse. It wasn't planned that way, Ashley cut in, her voice climbing, defensive. Ryan wanted to do something nice for our anniversary. We'd both been under so much stress, and honestly, Daniel, it's not like it's any of your. It is entirely my business, Daniel said, and something in his voice made both of them go quiet. I gave you $7,000 that I worked 40 years to save, money I could have used for my own care, my own future, because my son told me his son needed it for school, not for stress relief, not for an anniversary gift, for a 7-year-old's education. And instead of telling me the plan fell through, instead of calling me and saying, Dad, we don't need it anymore, let me give it back, you spent it on yourselves. Ryan's eyes were wet now, and Daniel felt his own chest ache at the sight of it, even now, even furious. That was the terrible thing about loving someone, it didn't turn off just because they'd hurt you. Dad, I'm sorry, I know how that looks. I panicked, okay? Money's been so tight and Ashley's been so unhappy, and I don't know what I thought. I thought I'd figure out the school thing eventually, find another one, make it work somehow, and I didn't call you back because I didn't know how to tell you. So you let me believe I was paying for my grandson's future, Daniel said, while you paid for a $2,000 bag. Nobody spoke. Somewhere down the hall, Daniel could hear the television playing cartoons. Tyler, probably, blissfully unaware that his name had been the reason for all of this. I want the money back, Daniel finally said. All of it, and I mean this next part with everything in me, Ryan. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because if that boy is going to new school, it is going to be because the money went where you told me it would go, and I'm going to see the enrollment confirmation with my own eyes before another dollar leaves my account. If you can't return it, we'll set up a payment plan, but it goes to Tyler's education. Not into your checking account, where it can disappear into anniversary gifts. Dad, I don't have it, we spent. Then you'll return the bag, Daniel said, and his eyes moved to Ashley, who looked, for the first time since he'd walked in, genuinely frightened, not of him, Daniel realized, but of the truth settling into the room. I'm not trying to control your marriage, I'm not trying to run your life, but I will not be lied to, and I will not be used as an ATM for a family that can't be honest with me. You are both adults, you can make whatever choices you want with your own money. But you do not get to make choices with mine, while telling me it's for my grandson. Ryan nodded slowly, tears finally spilling over. And for a moment he looked less like a grown man with a mortgage and a career, and more like the boy Daniel used to carry on his shoulders at the county fair. You're right, Dad, I'm sorry, I'll figure it out. I'll get the money back to you, I promise, and we'll return the bag, won't we, Ash? Ashley didn't answer right away, and something in her silence told Daniel this wasn't over, that there'd be more conversations like this one in the years ahead if things didn't change. But that wasn't a battle for tonight. It took 2 months, but the money came back, most of it in a lump sum from the returned bag and a bonus Ryan got at work, the rest in 3 smaller installments that Daniel accepted without complaint, because he understood now that trust, once spent carelessly, has to be rebuilt the same slow way money does, a little at a time, with interest, with proof. Tyler did start at a new school that fall, not the exclusive private academy with the small class sizes, but a well-regarded public magnet program 2 towns over, one Daniel helped research himself, sitting at his kitchen table with his laptop, and his glasses pushed up on his forehead, cross-referencing ratings and reviews like it was the most important assignment of his life. When the acceptance letter came, Daniel drove straight over with a cake from the bakery Carol used to love, and Tyler ran to the door yelling, "Grandpa D," the way he always had, and for a moment none of the rest of it mattered. But Daniel didn't forget. He didn't hold a grudge exactly, grudges were heavy things, and he was too old to carry extra weight he didn't need to, but he learned. From then on, when Ryan called asking for help, Daniel asked more questions. He paid tuition directly to schools, not to bank accounts. He asked to see the paperwork before he ever asked what account number to send to. It wasn't that he loved his son any less. It was that he'd learned the difference between generosity and blindness, and he intended, for whatever years he had left, to keep telling them apart. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, he thought about that handbag sitting on the entryway table, gold buckles catching the light, and he thought about how close he'd come to never knowing the truth at all. How easily a granddaughter's offhand comment during a school project could have been the only thing standing between him and being quietly, comfortably used for the rest of his life. He was grateful for Maddie, more than she'd ever know, and he was grateful too in some strange way for the whole ordeal, because it had taught him at 68 years old that love and trust were not the same thing, and that the second one had to be earned, checked and re-earned, even by your own children. Especially by your own children. Tyler's report card came home with straight A's that first semester. Daniel put it on his refrigerator, right next to the dinosaur drawings, and every time he looked at it, he felt that same old warmth, the useful, needed feeling he'd chased his whole life, except now it came without the ache of having been fooled. That, Daniel decided, was worth more than any luxury bag in the world.